Thank you, everyone. Forgive me. I walked into the conference centre yesterday and I met Barnaby and the team from the Elephant Protection Initiative, and I saw Temba, which means hope. She means hope. And so last night I was in fierce negotiations with Barnaby if I could have her on stage to talk about the Elephant Protection Initiative, but also to talk about the importance of capital efficiency and capital in mining, because capital matters in mining, and it's often an issue that we overlook, and it is in fact the elephant in the room. So welcome everyone, welcome to London. It's wonderful to see many of you here today returning. Many of you have travelled from South Africa, from New Zealand, from Sydney as far as I can see. Canada is just one example of a far-flung nation that is attending today. And many of you who are returning to a place that others have returned to for millennia. As I walked into this venue this morning, I realised that we're not the first and we won't be the last, but this place, London, has been a meta-convener for thousands of years, not just in technology and other types of discussions, but specifically in mining. Because you see, mining in the UK is ancient. It's about 4,500 years old. It is the Bronze Age. About 4,500 years they were digging out copper and tin in Cornwall and Wales, and by the 19th century London had become a centre for mining science and trade. The Geological Society was founded in 1807, the Royal School of Mines in 1851, the London Metal Exchange opened in 1877, and with that, its famous 3-month copper price, which was designed to take ore from Valparaiso in Chile all the way through to Coppolopolis, which happened to be in Swansea, and produced 70% of the world's copper metal. All this history is often forgotten in the UK about its dominance in the mining sector, and that, I argue, is continuing to this day. Not only is the trade important in mining, but also its engineering legacy, which I talk about in the School of Mines in particular. But consider the Thames Tunnel. Just upriver, actually, if you wanted a quick trip to the Brunel Museum. It was the first underwater tunnel in the world, begun in 1825 by Mark Brunel and his son Isambard Kingdom Brunel. Here in London, they pioneered the tunnelling shield, an invention that made modern subways and modern underground tunnels possible. So why should we revisit this history? Because it reminds us that we stand on the shoulders of giants. We are heirs to those who came before. People like Georgius Agricola, who wrote the famous De Re Metallica, of Henry Bessemer, that wonderful Brit, who designed and revolutionized steelmaking in the Bessemer process, and of Mark and Isambard Brunel, who dared to tunnel under a river. We are simply the current custodians of an ancient and very noble industry. And notably, those past achievements weren't solo acts. They were backed by financiers and investors, people like many of you here today. We often celebrate the inventors, but we often overlook those backers who put capital behind the bold ideas and stuck with those people through setbacks. The Brunel Thames Tunnel, for example, took 18 arduous years to complete, and it wouldn't have been possible without the investors who believed in the vision. I share these stories today because we need that same inspiration and indomitable spirit today. The challenges we face in 2025 may differ in detail, but they demand the boldness and the innovation of those earlier eras. We gather here not just to reminisce, but to galvanise ourselves for what's ahead. So let me lay out the situation as clear as I can. Mining is expected to deliver the raw materials for a future the world wants, but right now we are simply not on track to supply them. If the 19th century ran on coal and iron, the 21st century will run on copper, nickel, lithium, cobalt, and of course rare earth elements. The critical minerals needed for clean energy technology and advancing digital devices, and you heard that from Fiona earlier. Demand for these, as you well know, is skyrocketing to support electric vehicles, artificial intelligence data centers, large-scale batteries, and all the infrastructure needed for a low-carbon economy. We need far more of those materials than we need today, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with the International Energy Agency, which projects by 2030, global demand for these key materials like lithium and cobalt and nickel and copper will roughly double. And by 2040, it will triple. And yet our industry's current trajectory doesn't give us the confidence that we'll meet that same demand, not with business as usual. Unless we dramatically change how we mine and finance, we risk falling short. That is the elephant in the room, and no one's addressing it. In plain terms, if we carry on as we have been, we will not supply the metals needed for the future society is building. Meeting this gargantuan demand requires a fundamentally different approach. We have to capture the ingenuity of our forebears and apply it to today's reality, and that's why this conference is titled Resourcing Tomorrow. We have three focus areas here: critical minerals, fast-tracking mining projects, and circularity, each with a major challenge our industry must overcome. The first is speed, the time to get projects up online, and how do we fast-track them. The second is trust and predictability, delivering on our promises. How do we regain the confidence of investors and stakeholders? And thirdly, sustainability and innovation, reducing environmental impact and embracing new technologies. This is something that Ro was talking about just before. How do we make mining cleaner and therefore easier to approve? So let's just tackle these one by one. Firstly, time. That wonderful statistic that it takes 15 years to get a mine up and running. If you find a deposit today, after exploration, it probably won't be up and running until 2040. And 2040 is beyond many clean energy targets and artificial intelligence data center targets. If a copper discovery today in 2025 only starts by 2040, that's a serious timing problem. Entire technology revolutions happen in 15 years, yet that kind of delay is normal in mining. And it's easier to see why. Mining projects are huge, multi-billion and complex. Permits take years and the construction is massive. Worley do this all the time. We built out Oyu Tolgoi in copper in Mongolia. We're building out Rincon. We're building out the Woodsmith mine in the northeast of England. So we know that if we don't compress this timeline, we won't deliver what the world needs when it needs it. We must find ways to go from discovery to production faster, not by cutting corners on safety or community relations, but planning smarter and executing more efficiently. The second challenge is that we find that projects move at the speed of trust. Our industry has a credibility problem in the eyes of the investors and lenders. Simply put, we haven't been delivering projects on time and on budget. And it wasn't always this way. As little as a few decades ago, many mining projects, particularly in the Pilbara of Western Australia, came in on budget and on schedule. If a company promised a mine by 2025 for $1 billion, investors had a reason to believe it. Today, that trust has eroded. Only 1 in 6 mining projects is completed as planned. The vast majority blow past budgets or deadlines or both. And on average, a project ends up costing 50% more than initially estimated and starting production years late. So imagine budgeting $4 billion and spending $6 billion, or aiming for first output in 2025 but not delivering until 2028. And that scenario has become all too common. From an investor's perspective, this is alarming. If nearly every mine project requires significantly more capital and time than promised, quite rightly, investors get skittish. They demand higher returns to compensate for the risk, or they invest elsewhere. Marijuana in California is a classic example at this moment in time. Or simply they wait until the project is finished before getting involved. In all cases, less capital is available for new mines, and what does come is more expensive. It's telling that the industry now ranks project execution as one of the top risks in mining, above all, like geopolitical instability. If we as an industry can't predict our own outcomes, why do financiers invest in us? So capital challenge 2 is how do we restore predictability and win back trust? Speeding up doesn't help if we don't also become more reliable. Even if permitting could be cut to 2 years, it won't matter if the construction then takes 10 years and doubles the budget. We have to improve both the pace and the predictability of project delivery. The third point is sustainability and innovation. The challenge is to make mining cleaner and more acceptable so projects can be approved and operated responsibly by deploying new technologies and methods. The world expects mining to minimize environmental impact and respect communities. Our social license to operate depends on it. If we dramatically reduce our footprint, we'll get permits faster and face less opposition. If we don't, projects will continue to stall or fail to be approved at all. Take tailings, mine waste, for example. For over a century, our solution has been to store that as a liquid slurry behind land embankments, creating huge ponds that you can see from space. This is increasingly untenable. Tailings failures such as Brumadinho of January 2019 have caused devastating environmental damage and a tragic loss of life. Even without failures, these vast waste impoundments are permanent liabilities, requiring monitoring long after the mine closes. And quite rightly, public tolerance for this is wearing thin. But what if we could eliminate tailings dams? What if we didn't have to bring so much waste to the surface in the first place? What if we considered in situ leaching or in situ recovery, and instead of digging rock out of the ground and hauling it to a metallurgical plant, we develop underground mines that blast the ore body, leave it intact, and circulate a biodegradable non-toxic solution, such as deep eutectic ionic solvents, and then pump that to the surface. There's no open pit, there's no tailings dam, there's just a minimal expression, perhaps in the form of a decline or a head frame. In situ techniques aren't universally applicable, and we must be careful to protect groundwater, but the potential is huge, a mine that leaves little trace. If we could tell community and regulators this project will have a minimal surface disturbance, no tailings dam, and when we're done, you won't even know we were there, I suspect we would have a much easier time to secure approvals. That's the kind of step change we need in mining's environmental performance. So why haven't we embraced this technology? Because new technologies introduce uncertainty. And when you're spending $4 billion on something, you want it to be reasonably stable and risk-free. And uncertainty makes investors and companies very nervous. Unproven methods carry risk. No one wants to be the first. And this is what Ro was talking about as well, to test a new approach on a billion-dollar project and possibly fail. I call this the second mouse gets the cheese. Everyone wants to be second to try a new technology and let someone else go first and prove it. And the caution is understandable at an individual project level, but collectively it holds us back. We stick with the old methods, improving them only incrementally instead of leapfrogging to new ones which can transform our energy footprint and efficiency. And the bottom line for challenge 3, the sustainability and invention, is we need to get out of our comfort zone and embrace innovation while finding ways to share or mitigate the risk of being early adopters. The only way to shrink mining's environmental footprint and earn the public's trust on a grand scale. These 3 challenges, time, trust, and sustainability, are tightly intertwined. We can't solve one and ignore the others. Trying to speed up mining without caring for sustainability won't work, nor will pursuing sustainability in ways that makes projects even slower and even costlier. We have to tackle all 3 at once to streamline our processes, improve execution discipline, and innovate for cleaner mining. Not easy, but necessary. So how do we begin? Well, a good start is to look at how projects were delivered when things went right and how things differ from today so we know what to change and restore. Decades ago, when mines often met their targets, a few principles prevailed. Companies planned realistically from the outset. Once they began building, they minimized changes and stuck to the plan. Owners and contractors worked as partners, trusting each other and solving problems together rather than fighting. Decisions were made on the ground with minimal bureaucracy. These conditions gave efficiency and predictability, which gave investors confidence. Today, many of those practices have weakened. Initial plans can be over-optimistic or in flux. We call this optimism bias. Projects are larger and more complex, and mid-course design changes are common, even after what so is called the design freeze, that pre-feasibility stage. We just can't help ourselves by messing with it. The partnership between owners and contract often frays. Too often they operate in silos, each protecting their own interests. What should be we're all in it together effort sometimes turns into finger pointing. And there's more red tape. Project managers spend as much time on reports and approvals as on problem solving, which slows everything down. And stricter regulations and high community expectations on top of that, and it's no surprise that our projects struggle. So this brings me to what what Worley called the Capital Matters initiative. And today I'm announcing the launch of it, a 12-month, industry-wide, collaborative program in combination with EY to improve how we must deliver mining projects. Its aim is to restore predictability and trust in project delivery, addressing the time and trust challenges, but also paving the way for new technologies that address sustainability. All these changes are, of course, easier said than done. They require trust, openness, and a willingness to break old habits. But we have far more to gain than lose by doing this, because the status quo is not working. It is truly a necessary reset. Now imagine if we get this right. Fast forward a few years, say maybe even to 2030, which isn't so far away, and picture a transformed mining industry. With effective and efficient, predictable projects, investor confidence returns. Capital flows into minings because investors trust we'll deliver. Our cost of capital, that weighted average cost of capital, drops as the perceived risk goes down. More projects become financially viable, and we gain more flexibility to invest in extra environmental measures or community investments and benefits without breaking the bank. Projects move faster, streamline permitting, thanks to better community trust, and solid environmental plans could cut approval times. Improved project management and construction methods can trim years off building a mine. That off-cycled 15-year timetable from discovery might shrink dramatically. Imagine 8 years instead of 15, maybe even less. We would finally be building mines at the pace that society needs. Meanwhile, the communities and governments become partners in our success. When we prove that we operate responsibly and keep our promises, communities are far more likely to welcome projects. Instead of protracted opposition, we'll see faster agreements and more constructive dialogue. Governments seeing that mining can drive economic growth without leaving a mess will be more inclined to support us with reasonable policies and timely permits. And critically, global climate and development goals stay within reach, because if a mine steps up and supplies copper, lithium, nickel, and other critical minerals in time, the clean energy transition and the artificial intelligence transition stays on track. We won't be a bottleneck anymore. We will be an enabler. And by incorporating cleaner mining technologies in our operations, we'll ensure that providing those essential materials doesn't increase and create new environmental problems. In fact, mining will be a driving force for a sustainable future and not an obstacle to it. So that's the future we're looking for. The ambition of the Capital Matters initiative is to make the exceptional routine, to make on-time, on-budget, environmentally responsible projects normal. Instead of projects averaging 50% over budget, maybe we can get that down to 5%. Instead of 1 in 6 projects succeeding, we flip it to 5 in 6. Let's aim for that by the end of the decade. Is it ambitious? Absolutely. But I believe it's achievable. History shows when this industry sets its mind to a challenge, it accomplishes amazing things. Our predecessors built mines and infrastructure with far more limited tools than we have now. They didn't have computers or automation or AI. They had grit, ingenuity, and determination. And we have all that, and some more. Often what's holding us back today isn't a lack of technology or skill, but a lack of coordination and an excess of caution. And those are the things that we can change. I won't pretend that any of this will be easy or happen overnight. We will meet obstacles and we'll learn from some failures along the way. But this 12-month Capital Matters program is just the start. It's a catalyst. Keeping the momentum will require persistence well beyond a year and will require all of us to participate. We can't do it by ourselves. The stakes are enormous. How we raise and deploy capital for mining projects will help determine whether the world gets the materials it needs for a sustainable future. I have tremendous faith that we can do it because I know the people in the industry. It's all I've ever known. Miners are problem solvers and pioneers at heart. Give us a challenge and we'll find a way. We've done it before, time and time again. Tunneling through impossibilities, scaling mountains. And look at what we're doing right here. We're having a candid conversation about our shortcomings and how to fix them. And this openness is a huge step forward for us, a sign that we're ready to change. And what better place than London to start this new chapter? This city has been the launch pad for so many innovations in mining and engineering. And it's fitting here at Resourcing Tomorrow that we can commit to reshaping our industry's future. So let's make the mining industry of the 2020s as bold and as essential as it was in those historical examples. Let's fast track the supply of critical minerals in a way that respects communities and the planet. Let's build and embrace new technologies that makes mining cleaner and safer, showing the world that we are true partners in building a viable future. In short, let us once again make mining the foundation of global progress rather than a bottleneck. Lastly, I would say that the challenges before us are massive, but so is our resolve. We truly stand on the shoulders of giants here in this place. It's now our turn to stand tall so future generations can stand on ours. Otherwise, it's a terrible pun, I fear we will become irrelevant. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Thank you very much, Darryn. Thank you. Excellent.